Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, episode 987. That's the Sam Darnold I know. We'll discuss that, of course, later on in this podcast. Happy New Year to everybody out there. I hope everybody out there is being safe, especially in the DMV area with all this snow. Nothing like, it was major, but not major. Like other cities laugh at the DMV in terms of how we handle snow. I mean, literally other cities, especially in the Northeast, absolutely, or in Chicago, just laugh at us as they should because we just panic and break down over an inch of snow, let alone 5 to 10 inches or wherever we got 8 to 12 inches. But hope everybody out there is being safe. I am happy to be back with you for 2025. We have a very busy podcast. Certainly a football laden podcast, and the NBA as well. A great weekend for the NBA. We'll get right to it. Before we get to it, like, subscribe, share this podcast. All your support is well appreciated. And you can find this podcast where all podcasts, any podcasts are available. So certainly appreciate all your support. Game of the week. What turned out what I thought was going to be a heavyweight showdown turned out to be basically a knockout or not so much a knockout, but maybe a second half knockout. But turned out to be a dud, 31-9. Detroit handles their business, finishes the season at 15-2. Minnesota, of course, 14-3. Nothing is not too shabby, but they will have to go on the road. They will have to go on the road, and they will have to, unless something insane happens with the Commanders making a run or with Green Bay making a run to the conference championship, Minnesota will have to get to the Super Bowl on the road, which has been done before. But you certainly would rather have that home field advantage. But this game, to me, about two things. I'll deal with the Detroit aspect last. I don't have anything personal against Sam Darnold. I never met the guy, never rooted for or against him. Even going back to his time at USC and with his, bouncing around the NFL with the Jets and Carolina and last year with San Francisco. So I don't have any Sam Darnold bias or I'm agnostic when it comes to Sam Darnold, to be honest with you. But I found myself taking some pleasure in that performance last night. And I'll tell you why. Sam Darnold last night, one of the worst games of the season, 18 of 41, 166 yards, was just awful. He was 10 for 28 for 125 against man coverage and 1 for 9 when he had to hold the ball 4 seconds or longer. That is the book on Sam Darnold. You want him to hold the ball as long as possible. You want to obviously put pressure like you do all quarterbacks. Want to obviously put pressure on him as they did. And the MVP of the game was Aaron Glenn. By the way, the Detroit defensive coordinator was. I know Jamari Gibbs had a big day with the 4 touchdowns, but the MVP of the game was Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator. But getting back to Darnold, it started getting a little crazy over the last couple of weeks. First, it's like, okay, he's made the Pro Bowl, so he got his flowers there. He's had an All Pro caliber season, which in a normal year, if Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were not the MVPs of this league, one of them is going to win MVP. He would be considered to be an all pro. That's how well Sam Darnold has played this year. But I started hearing stuff like, hey, you got to just give Sam his money right now. And like Sam was going to get this massive lucrative contract, $40 or $50 million a year. I was like, whoa. Hold on here. Because you have other options for Sam Darnold. Like you're just going to completely dismiss JJ McCarthy. You're going to completely dismiss that you haven't seen Sam Darnold in the playoffs. Like let's pump the brakes here. And I wanted to see what Sam Darnold would do in a big game. This was a playoff type game. This was a huge game, especially for Detroit. Detroit had to win this game. Absolutely had to win this game because there we know they have 17 guys on injured reserve, 12 of them on defense. They hadn't had a bye since week 5. I think this was a must win with Detroit, and Detroit played with that sense of urgency, no question about it. But Sam Darnold in this game was frankly looked like a deer in headlights. And you gauge quarterbacks on how they play in the biggest of games. It's one of the reasons why there's a question mark still around Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson could win his third MVP this year. He's, Peyton Manning like as far as the trajectory of his career early on. He's won a lot of games, but he has a 2-4 playoff record, and he's been bad in postseason. That's all there is to it. So quarterbacks are gauged based off what they do in the big games, in the pressure situations, in the pressure moments on third down. Those are things. Those are some of the barometers we use to gauge our quarterbacks. So last night, Sam Darnold went out there against a depleted Detroit defense that suffered more injuries last night in the secondary. A depleted Detroit defense, and he went out there and didn't wet the bed. He shit and wet in the bed. He did both. He did both. There was a stretch in the game where he missed Justin Jefferson, the heavyweight champion of wide receivers right now, the world's best receiver, 4 times in goal to goal inside the 5-yard line in goal to goal situations. 4 times. 4. Three of the two. I would say one of them was like excellent defense. 3 of them were catchable, were balls that should have been connected, that throws that should have connected, that he should have connected on. Like 3 of them were inexcusable. One of them was such a bad overthrow. Justin Jefferson beat the guy so bad that Justin Jefferson had the dude beat so bad in the end zone. He was 2 to 3 yards ahead of the dude in the end zone, wide open in the corner, and Darnold overthrew him by about 4 yards. And again, this is the best receiver in football right now. One of the best pass catchers, one of the best athletes in the game at receiver right now. Period. Point blank. And he couldn't connect on him on 4 straight times. Jefferson for the game only had 3 catches for 54 yards and 9 targets. So again, it's been a wonderful story. Sam Darnold has played this year has played at a high level this year. You cannot deny how great he's been this year. But you got, before you start tossing out money, before you start making franchise alternate decisions on personnel, I gotta see you in the playoffs, man. Like I have to see you in the postseason. And for me to commit my franchise to Sam Darnold, he's going to win the Super Bowl. He's going to go to the Super Bowl. He's going to minimum go to the Super Bowl. Even the NFC, if they got to the NFC Championship and lost to, say, Philadelphia or whoever, I'm still not no. I'm still not giving him the keys to the car, the keys to the castle. Because I got to see more. I just have to see more. I think Sam Darnold is somewhere in between Ryan Tannehill and Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon, those are 2 quarterbacks who, had shaky starts to their careers and ended up being reclamation projects later on in their respective careers. Gannon won the MVP, went to a Super Bowl, lost, of course. Tannehill went to AFC Championship with under Mike Vrabel a couple years back when they lost to Kansas City. He's somewhere in between those 2 guys. I don't know. He's probably closer to Tannehill than he is Rich Gannon, because Gannon had a nice stretch in the early 2000s. He's somewhere in between those guys, but I'm not. I don't think Sam Darnold. I haven't seen enough yet to say I would be fully committed to Sam Darnold and handing my franchise over to Sam. I'm not. No, I think Sam Darnold will go back to being a mediocre, vagabond, journeyman quarterback? Probably not. Probably not. He's probably a legit solid starter in this league for the next 5 to 8 years. But I'm not ready. Like this version of Sam Darnold that we've seen in the regular season, I'm not ready to say. I'm not convinced that he is that guy that we've seen. I'm not convinced. So we'll see what happens. Again, his first test on the major on the big stage with all the pressure on, he failed miserably. Failed miserably. There's no other way to it. There's no two ways about it. He was awful. And that game, listen, that game got away early. That game got away in the second half. But that game was there for Minnesota in the first half. They had numerous opportunities inside on Detroit's side of the field, especially inside the 10-yard line in the red zone. They left a lot of points on the board. They left anywhere from 10 to 14, anywhere from 14 to 17 points on the board in the first half. That game was right there for them in that first half. They should have been up, matter of fact, at halftime instead of being down. I believe 10-6. They should have been up against Detroit. As far as Detroit goes, you give Dan Campbell, give Aaron Glenn all the credit in the world. That is a tough team, mentally, physically, the whole nine. Aaron Glenn, to me, was the MVP of the game. He had Darnold completely just flustered. They basically shut down their offense for the most part. Kept them out the end zone. He held them to 9 points. Their defense, Detroit's defense, again, it has been ravaged by injuries up and down the board. They get the bye that they desperately needed, and Detroit, the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC will go through Detroit. And they right now with Jalen Hurts concussion situation, right now with not Sam Darnold being a major question mark as far as how what type of play that he, as far as how well he can perform in the postseason or lack of experience. Never been to playoffs before, so you got to keep that in mind. You have a bunch of question marks in the NFC. The NFC is right there for the taking for Detroit. It really is. Again, I don't know what Jalen Hurts we're going to see when he gets back. Tampa Bay is a very good team, but you know they have their own flaws. They almost lost to the Saints last night, yesterday. So it's right there for Detroit. Like it's right there. Green Bay has question marks. They lose Christian Watson. That's a huge loss. They're not playing well right now. Um, Rams are not quite there yet. We know Washington is not quite yet there yet, despite the fact that they had both those teams had excellent seasons. So I think right now, like Detroit has to be considered the favorite to get to the Super Bowl despite all the injuries. Like I said, that home field advantage was extremely important to them. I think Philadelphia has the most complete team and has the most talent from top to bottom. But again, I gotta see Jalen Hurts from this concussion. I gotta see Jalen Hurts and how he plays coming back from a concussion. That's nothing. There's nothing to shake your head about. There's nothing to dismiss. A concussion is a concussion. So we'll talk more about the playoffs when we deep dive the playoffs. But great win for Detroit. Minnesota, of course, will have to go on the road to get to the Super Bowl. The deep dive is because of the NFL playoffs. This year, if you had a theme for this year going to the playoffs, it really is the haves and the have-nots. This season, we saw 12 teams 12 teams win. We saw 7 teams win 12 or more games, and we saw 10 teams lose 12 more games. You look at the playoffs right now, look at the quarterbacks. You got Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, um, 2 excellent rookie quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. And Bo Nix. You have Jordan Love. You have Matthew Stafford. You have Baker Mayfield, who had one of the more underappreciated years. I mean, 43 touchdowns, about 9 interceptions. He's not 43 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He had that was Baker. That was what's the name had the 40 Sam Burrow. Joe Burrow had the 42 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But you look across the board, it's about the quarterbacks. You don't have that guy. Chances are you would not be able to sniff the playoffs in 2025 in this version of the NFL. You just can't do it. You can't. There was a couple of good quarterbacks. I mean, Justin Herbert. I know he struggled this year, but C.J. Stroud still has a ton of potential. So it comes down. You have to have that guy in the center. You have to in the worst way. Um, I'm looking at this, and I'll give my prediction. I'll give you my prediction on who I think is going to the Super Bowl. It's definitely it is a change from my original. I no longer have Green Bay and Kansas City, though I'll have one of those teams. But to me, these playoffs comes down to two guys. They come down to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. One of those guys is going to be an MVP. I expected that it will be more likely Josh Allen. He's a he. I would if I had a vote, I would vote for Josh Allen, but I have zero problem if Lamar Jackson wins it. Lamar Jackson had a phenomenal season, had a historic season. First the first player to lead the league in rushing and in terms of rushing yards per game, as far as passing, in terms of also passing yards per attempt. So he's historic from that standpoint. 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. First guy to have 40 touchdowns and less than 5 interceptions. So Lamar has been spectacular. He continues to get better, but he has to win. Like when they have Baltimore this season, Baltimore is absolutely loaded this year. Baltimore has a Super Bowl caliber team. They finished the season with a top 10 defense in points allowed. In terms of yardage, I believe they were ninth. They were also 10th in yards and in terms of points allowed. Their last they were only giving up like 15 points a game. Their last 5 games or 7 games only gave up like 15 points a game. The last 5 games. So their defense, they fixed the defense. You have the running game. You have a above average offensive line. They had 9 Pro Bowlers this year. They will have at least 3 or 4 All Pro players. So Justin Tucker kind of has gotten things straightened out a bit. Remember, he had his struggles in November, in particular in early December. So at this point, is now or never for Baltimore. Baltimore has a Super Bowl roster. Now, if you lose, anybody can lose a Super Bowl. We've seen an 18-0 New England team that was considered to be one of the all greatest teams of all time lose a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Anybody can lose a Super Bowl. We understand that. Like Tom Landry, some of the greatest coaches of all time have lost Super Bowls. Tom Landry, Don Shula, it goes on and on and on. I can give you a number. So I give you a number of great coaches over the history of this game that have lost Super Bowls. So if they get to the Super Bowl and lose, I'm not going to hold that against him, depending on how well he performs. But he has to get to the Super Bowl this year to justify the amount of the MVPs, like the yardage, to all these accolades that has been not given to him, but that he's earned. But when you get to a certain point, and Peyton Manning dealt with this, that's why I compare him to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning dealt with this early in his career. He was winning MVPs. He was winning, 11 to 13 games every single year, with the exception of his rookie season. The Colts would be in the playoffs every year, and they would end up flaming out for that 2006 season. They would end up going out either early or losing a game that they had no business losing. They had a number of bad. Look at Peyton Manning's record. First of all, Peyton Manning's overall postseason record is not good, but he lost a number of bad playoff losses that he has on his resume. Yeah, Lamar has to get to the Super Bowl this year. It's right there. It's right there in front of him. Everything is right there in front of him. They have to me, Again, we can and people will convince themselves with this Pittsburgh game, division rival. You know, he's had some shaky games over his career against Pittsburgh, minus the last one they played. They should absolutely destroy Pittsburgh on uh, on Saturday on Saturday night. They should absolutely destroy the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh, did you if you watch Pittsburgh against Cincinnati, you watched Pittsburgh for the last month. Pittsburgh Pittsburgh has not cracked 17 points in like four straight games, which is unheard of in today's NFL. Too, even the worst teams can get above 17 points. Like even the Jacksonville's, whoever, the Jets, whoever can score more than 17 points in a game. That's how bad Pittsburgh's offense. Pittsburgh in that game Saturday night looked like a expansion team offensively. Russell Wilson, again, I think for Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson is going to do them a favor because they are going to either two things: either you can just outright get rid of him or bring him back at like 20 cents on a dollar. So he's no longer in a position of power as far as commanding a big salary. Or I would just flat out just get rid of him and move on and see what I got in Justin Fields. So Baltimore absolutely should have their way with Pittsburgh. And then they'll have more than likely you'll have the MVP showdown. Assuming that Buffalo handles his business against Denver, which I think they will. I don't see a rookie quarterback going to Buffalo on the road and winning, and winning that game. I just don't see it. As well as Bo Nix has played. Then you'll have the Super Bowl. Then you'll have the MVP showdown. And by the way, Baltimore absolutely should beat Buffalo. They are clearly a better team than Buffalo. Buffalo, yeah, I'm telling you, and Buffalo has average talent. Average talent. So Lamar has to win. That's all there's to it. That's all there's left for him. He's going to have every accolade known to man. He has the MVPs. He has the rushing and all the numbers and stats, and he has everything but winning. He hasn't won. He hasn't won at a high level. Hasn't been successful in the postseason. And again, we saw no quarterback at that level is immune to criticism before they win at a high level. Terry Bradshaw called John Elway a loser. And John Elway, this is when John Elway had drugged Denver to three Super Bowls. He drugged those teams to Super Bowls. They made it to Super Bowls in years where they had no business going to Super Bowl. Sorry, Cleveland. Terry Bradshaw called him a loser. So all the quarterbacks before they win, when you get to a certain level, Peyton Manning had to deal with it. Brady won early, so he didn't have to deal with it. Mahomes won early, so he didn't have to deal with it. But Marino, people whipped Dan Marino for not winning unfairly because he just frankly did not have the talent around him. They did a terrible job at surrounding him with talent on the defense, especially defensively and with the running game. Did an awful job. Did an awful job over the course of his career. Wasted an absolute Hall of Fame career. I'm not gonna say Jim Kelly as much because Jim Kelly wasn't on that level. But when you get to a certain level, you start winning MVP. I mean, Steve Young had to win without Montana. He had to prove he had to win. I mean, he had won a Super Bowl, but he hadn't won it as a starting quarterback. He'd been part of the team, but Steve Young was winning it when they decided to move on from Montana, and Steve Young became the guy. Steve Young won MVPs, but he had won an MVP, but he hadn't won the Super Bowl, and in order to get out of the shadow of Joe Montana, he had to win, and in 1994 he did that and had one of the great Super Bowl performances of all time. Still has the record most touchdown passes in the Super Bowl with 6 against San Diego, and shut all that up. That shut everybody up, and he went on to a Hall of Fame career, deservedly so. So nothing. I mean, Lamar is not. It's not the exception. You criticize Lamar. It's like you hate. No, like you have to play in the postseason. You have to perform at a high level. You're going to get criticized if you don't perform at a high level when you are destroying people in the regular season, when you're winning all these awards, and when you are an MVP. 2 years. It kind of reminds me 2 years ago with Joker in the NBA, he had won two MVPs, but he hadn't won a championship. And people were like, "You have to win it this year. You have a team, you have a legit team around you, you have all the talent around you." And he had one of the great postseasons in recent memory. He won it and shut everybody up. That's what Lamar has to do. As far as Josh Allen goes, I don't think he has as much pressure on him, considering I just don't think that this Buffalo team is very good. Is a overwhelmingly talented team. I think they've overachieved greatly, immensely due to him and his brilliance. But there's still pressure. But there's still the spotlight is still on him because you're talking about a guy who's never, both neither one of these quarterbacks have ever been to a Super Bowl. That's number one. And similar to Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen uh, has done nothing but win in the regular season. Josh Allen has won. Both of these guys have 70 wins in just six in what seven in 7 seasons. So both of these guys are basically good for winning 10 games a year minimum 10 games a year. Both of these guys are. Josh Allen over the course of his career in 7 years has won 76 games. 76 games. Lamar Jackson has won 70. This year, Josh Allen completed his third 13-win season. That's a lot of wins. And Allen, by the way, in the playoffs, Allen 5-5 in the playoffs has been far the superior quarterback in the playoffs. Like he's been much better than he's performed way better than Josh Allen in the playoffs. Allen for his career in the playoffs is 21 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And of course, we remember that classic game they lost to Kansas City a couple years back, one of the great playoff games of all time, 42-36 in overtime. That one he was off the charts in that game. But he's at similar to Lamar Jackson. He's probably going to win MVP this year. So if he wins MVP, he would have done everything but get to a Super Bowl and win a championship. And he's at that level. He is regarded as a legit top three quarterback. Mahomes, Jackson, Allen. That's probably the list right now. Mahomes, Jackson, Allen are probably the top three quarterbacks in depending on what order. You can flip flop Allen and Lamar all you want, but those are the top three guys right now. Those are the guys right now. So this postseason to me will be defined by I feel by those two guys. Those are the two. Those are the guys who have the spotlight. Uh, as far as the favorites goes, listen. I don't like to. I hate to be chalk. I don't like to be chalk, but it's Kansas City and Detroit. I think if I'm picking a Super Bowl, I'm picking Kansas City to play Detroit. I still think Kansas City is the best team. Despite everybody criticizing them for winning, just doing nothing but winning. Like literally, they would literally lost one game this year. They lost one game. I don't even count the game on yesterday against the Broncos. They didn't play anybody. All their players sat. So Kansas City basically was 15-1 this year, and they've won. And going back to last year, again they've only lost. They've when Mahomes has played, the only game they lost basically in a year and a half was against Buffalo in the regular season. They're still the best big game team in football. Those 2 weeks, they're gonna get 2 weeks off. They're gonna be fresh. Mahomes was played much better down the course of the regular season. Um, their defense, Spagnola is Spagnola. We know that he's a genius especially in the postseason. So I think Kansas City will come out here, flex their muscles. I think that we are headed towards two showdowns. Um, AFC, I say we will get the rematch from last year's AFC Championship, Kansas City and Baltimore, this time at Arrowhead. And in the NFC, I think we will get Detroit. I think we're going to get Detroit and Philadelphia in the NFC. So I think we're basically going to be chalk with minus. And nobody's surprised, even though uh, nobody would be surprised with Baltimore taking out Buffalo. So that's not an upset, even though Buffalo has a higher seed. So I think we will get a chalk conference championships, and I think Detroit and Kansas City come through, and we get that rematch of a opening season game that we had a couple of years ago back in the beginning of the 23 season when Detroit upset Kansas City. Now Kansas City was missing some players with that one. They missed Kelsey. I believe Kelsey and Chris Jones were out though were out was out that game at the beginning of the 23 season. So Kansas City, um, Kansas City and Detroit, and I will not change my pick from the start of the season. I think Kansas City is going to three-peat. The best game of the week or the weekend will be to me. I'm really focused on that Green Bay. I really like that Green Bay Philadelphia game because you have question marks in regards to both quarterbacks. A lot of questions in that game. Questions about Jalen Hurts, and also questions about Jordan Love and Green Bay in general. And can they bounce back? Um, can they bounce back coming off two straight losses? Um, Philadelphia has a better team overall, but Green Bay is very dangerous. I picked Green Bay to win the Super Bowl, to get to the Super Bowl like before the season started. Green Bay, I still think Green Bay has a lot of talent. LaFleur is coaching a lot of big games, a couple conference championships. So that team is, they've been in some postseason. They've been in recently they've been in a lot of postseason games. Last year they easily could have went to the conference championship when they lost. They lost to San Francisco in a game that they probably should have won. So that should be a exciting. That should be a fun game to watch. I like the Minnesota Ram game. The Minnesota Ram game. I think that's a very very tough game for Minnesota. The Rams beat them earlier this year. Minnesota. I love McVay in the playoffs and some of the veterans that the Rams have. They have young players on defense. Again, I gotta see Sam Darnold do it. It would not be an upset to me if the Rams beat Minnesota by any stretch of imagination. Man, I mean the game is at the Rams, even though Minnesota has a better record. So that's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a tough game for Minnesota to win. It's gonna be I actually I mean Minnesota probably will be slightly favored. But that's gonna be a big the Rams. The Rams are a Rams have a lot of young talent. They're not quite a Super Bowl team yet. They still probably a draft away from that and a couple of free agents, but they have some weapons on the outside with the receiver and of course Stafford. Stafford will be the best quarterback on the field. So if you have the best quarterback on the field, you always have a chance. So you have that. Then of course Washington Tampa Bay on was a Sunday night game. Washington clinching the number 6 seed with a win over Dallas. They only played Jay Daniels for a half. Mariota came in, played great in the second half. They were able to get by and get that number 6 seed, and with which they will travel to Tampa, play Tampa Bay. This will be a rematch, of course, from week one, where Tampa basically handled Washington 37-20. Really, outside the Dallas game, probably the worst game Washington played all season long. Even outside of the Dallas game where they lost to Dallas, they played horrible in that game. So, Jaden Daniels gets a taste of the postseason. Very important for him, even if they lose, for him to get those postseason reps. He had one of the great quarterback seasons of all time. I can make a case that it was the greatest rookie season for a quarterback in NFL history, to be honest with you, considering you have to take into consideration that this culture before he gets drafted was one of the worst cultures in all of sports, not just in NFL. So they were 4-13 last year. To go from 4-13 to 12-5 is a hell of a turnaround in 1 year. Completely shifting and changing the culture. Now you have guys on other teams who want to come and play here. There's already been some rumors about Tyreek Hill, which we'll talk about more later on in the podcast, about Tyreek Hill being a possibility coming to the Commanders. Even though I wouldn't do it if I was a Commanders, but just the fact that you have other players who haven't, and this didn't come out Tyreek Hill's mouth, but just rumors in general. But there have been other players who now want to come and play for Washington. The energy, the fan base is back. And the number one reason why that has occurred. I think Tampa I think Tampa has a better team, top to bottom, than Washington, and probably should win the game. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, certainly wouldn't be surprised if Washington won this game. It's pretty much a toss up, and it would be again Washington could win this game. It would be a major bonus, and it would actually they would it would kind of shake up the playoffs because as a number 6 seed, they would then go and have to play Detroit in the second in the divisional round the following week. So looking forward to this. Looking forward to the playoffs. There are 5 teams to me that can get to and win the Super Bowl. I think Kansas City, Baltimore, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Buffalo. Those are 5 teams that can get to and win the Super Bowl. It's not wide open as one as I don't think it's wide open. I think those are five. 5 out of 16 is that's pretty much part of the court. I mean, that's pretty much how it's going to be year in and year out. But I think those 5 teams are clearly heads and shoulders above everybody else. Again, Houston. I didn't certainly we did not like you do not like how Houston, Pittsburgh, and Green Bay ended the season. Those three teams ended the season not playing like playoff teams, and those 3 teams ended the season looking like they will be one and done. But we'll see what happens. College football playoffs actually are on to the Final Four. You had a I want to say a up and down weekend of games last week, not weekend, but of course on January 1st and 2nd. It definitely was marred by what transpired in New Orleans. That tragedy where of course you lost had 15 people lose their lives with this nutcase driving and running into people down in the French Quarter and shooting at the cops. And of course, that's still an ongoing investigation. You can check the news for that. I won't delve too much into that, but you had a classic with Texas and Arizona State. And what came out of the playoffs to me is the fact that the SEC is not that conference anymore. I know Texas made it by the skin of their teeth. Arizona State really easily could have won that game, but Georgia's gone. Notre Dame pushed Georgia around for the most part. Uh, Notre Dame only had like 242 yards of offense in that game against Georgia, but they felt like the more physical team, and they were the more physical team. It's been a long time since I've seen anybody push a Kirby Smart team around and physically dominate a Kirby Smart team. It wasn't about the quarterback. Stockton, the quarterback from Georgia, actually to me threw the ball very well, and I think he has a chance to be an excellent college player. I don't know about his pro prospects, but as a college player, with the dual threat. I think he could be a above average quarterback in college and perfect for the type of talent that they have around them and that they come in year out for Georgia. But the bottom line is, um, the SEC used to have just a significant recruiting edge. They used to have a significant edge just in terms of NFL talent. That's just not the case anymore. I mean, you're seeing guys decommit from from Florida, excuse me, from Alabama. You're seeing guys decommit from LSU. You're seeing guys decommit from even from Georgia. So nobody's immune from guys leaving, and that has made the college football see that has made college football almost seemingly somewhat at the top wide open. As you know, so Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame. Ohio State certainly has been the most impressive out of all these four teams. They will be unquestionably the favorite, but it's asking a lot to play four straight games at a high level. Now, I think Ohio State will beat Texas. I think we're headed towards Ohio State, probably in Ohio State, Penn State rematch. I actually like Penn State over Notre Dame, to be honest with you. I'm not in love with the Notre Dame offense. I think Penn State can handle the Notre Dame offense, and I think we will see a rematch with Penn State and Ohio State, which was a very good game that Penn State could have won. The Ohio State pulled away late. But I think ultimately, I think Ryan Day will in Ohio State will find their way to winning the national championship. But um, it's a tough Friday night is a tough night to have a playoff game on. But it was the only way that college football, like you can't compete. Obviously, you can't play it on Saturday with the NFL, and Wednesday, Thursday would have been too early considering you had teams play. I mean, how Penn, Georgia, the Georgia Notre Dame game had to be pushed back. That was supposed to be on New Year's Day. That was supposed to be New Year's Day on last Wednesday. That had to get pushed back to a Thursday. So you can't have them come back 6 days later. So you had to give them their at least a week of rest. So um that's again for Thursday's perfect, but Friday is that's a tough day to have. That's one of the worst television days. You look at the ratings. Fridays and Saturdays are the worst television days in terms of the ratings. When shows go to Friday and Saturday, they normally one step from being canceled. So we'll see what the numbers look like. I think so far, I would say that the playoffs have been good, not great. They need to tweak some things as far as the seeding, as far as strength of schedule. Those things need to be tweaked. Um, I'm not going to say that there were a couple teams in the first round that did not belong. I don't. Indiana, Indiana absolutely did not belong in the playoffs. Sorry, the performance they had against Notre Dame was embarrassing. They didn't belong in the playoffs. Now, certain teams were just overwhelmed because one team was just significantly better than the other. But Indiana did not belong in the playoffs. That's the one team that I look at and say that shouldn't have been there. Boise State actually acquitted itself fine versus Penn State. Had no problem with Boise State's performance. Um, I don't think that that winning a conference championship should give you an automatic first round bye. That's something they need to look at. And again, you're going to have to put more, and they're going to have to put more emphasis, similar to college basketball. You have to reward strength of schedule. Like, I mean, you just have to. I don't see, if I'm Alabama, if I'm Ole Miss, I feel I play in the toughest conference in terms of scheduling. The SEC is the toughest conference in the country, and those teams are constantly playing teams outside the SEC. So I think that should be rewarded. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the ratings look like after this week as well. But if you're a football fan, you're gonna have 5 straight days of football from Thursday through the following Monday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You will have 5 straight days of football between the college and pro football. Really historic. First time that again you've had a college football playoff coincide and be going on at the same time as the NFL playoffs. So we'll see what those numbers look like. Again, I Ohio State has is clearly right now, clearly the most complete team right now. They have a bunch of pros on that team. The receiver is going to be special. He's only a true freshman. Smith, guy's 6'4", 225 pounds, 215 pounds. He's a pro right now, and playing. Basically, he's a pro playing against college players right now. So he's going to be special. And Texas has a chance. Texas has a chance to kind of redeem themselves. A lot of people have been unimpressed by Texas. I don't trust the quarterback, but they go out there and beat Ohio State and get to a national championship, then Sarkisian people can get off little Sarkisian's back a bit, and he can justify all that talent that Texas has by getting to getting to a national championship and possibly winning it again. But I like Ohio State and Penn State in both of these games. You get four blue blood programs though. I mean, these are blue blood. All these programs are blue blood programs. The Penn State Notre Dame game is a throwback to a great rivalry in the late '80s, early '90s. They had a number of games against each other that they used to play. So that'll be a fun game to watch. And I expect both these games will be relatively close. I'm not high on Texas, but I think Texas's defense will keep them in that game against Ohio State. And also, Ohio State is due to come back down to earth. I don't expect Ohio State to play at the level that they're currently playing at right now, which has been ridiculous. Who won the week? Mike Evans. Mike Evans won it on the field and off the field as well. He gets the amount of yardage needed, gets the amount of yardage needed to go over 1,000 yards. He missed 3 games in the season, goes 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season to start a career. Only Jerry Rice has done that. This is a guy that for sure will be in the Hall of Fame. He already has 100 touchdowns, 12,000 over 12,000 yards. He's only 31. He's still relatively young. He's got maybe 3 to 4 years left, 3 to 4 years where he can perform at a decent level. He's going to end up probably with like 130, 140, 150 touchdowns and probably maybe 15,000 yards, maybe 14, 15,000 yards. So he's going to the Hall of Fame. Been one of the most consistent receivers of this generation. He rarely is hurt. Him missing 3 games was a lot. Like that's a lot of games for him to miss. He's been one of the more durable players in the NFL, durable receivers in the NFL, and he got his $3 million. Got the $3 million bonus. So well deserved out of him. He wins the week. Real thoughts. Some people don't like Miami. You got some athletes here, a couple of high profile, you know, future Hall of Fame athletes just not feeling Miami right now. Maybe not the lifestyle so much, but as much as what's going on the court. Let me begin with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler on Friday. Jimmy Butler was suspended by the Miami Heat for 7 games. The usual not contract, conduct detrimental to the team. That jargon. Um, This was following a press conference where Butler basically said that he had lost the joy of playing basketball and that he basically would not get it back playing in Miami. It came out that he and his agent requested to be traded. Miami. The bottom line is Miami. The Heat don't want to trade him right now. The Heat would be much better off trading him for them for them as a franchise would be better off trading him in the offseason in a sign and trade. They can accumulate more assets, and there will be more teams that probably will be willing to entertain the idea of having to not only acquire Jimmy Butler but also having to pay him in a contract extension. There's plenty to blame on both sides of this. First of all, um, we call Pat Riley the Godfather, right? Pat Riley is one of the most important figures in NBA history as far as a general manager, general manager. We know what Pat Riley has done, the 5 championships as a coach, the countless championships, the what he did to the Heat culture. I mean, he is Miami. He is the Miami Heat. Miami Heat. Oh, there was no Miami Heat culture before Pat Riley got there. Pat Riley completely changed that culture. So one of the all-time greats as far as an executive coach in any sport. But just like The Godfather, especially in part one, Salazzo said The Godfather was slipping. I wouldn't have got to him 10 years ago. And Pat Riley, Frank, we gotta keep it a buck here. He's been slipping a bit. Like Miami, you had to anticipate when you refused to sign Butler to that 2 year, $113 million extension. You had to anticipate that he was going to show his ass. You had to anticipate that. You've been with him. You Pat Riley follows the NBA. He knows what's going on in the NBA all around the league. That's his job as an executive. It's his job to know what players are thinking, how these players are moving, especially the high profile players. So I don't understand. He had to see this coming. And to think that Jimmy Butler was just going to go about his business and be like, okay, you know what? I'm good. You know, want to sign me an extension? I'm going to go out there. I'm still going to go out there. I'm play hard. I'm still represent Miami. He coaching all that. He coaching the whole nine. It was delusional for Pat Riley and the rest of that organization, Mickey Arison, to think that Jimmy Butler was not going to show his ass. Now, on the flip side, if you're Jimmy Butler, okay, you didn't get your extension. Um, Probably don't go and sabotage the season. Like Jimmy Butler is putting up some of the worst numbers in his career, and it's not because Jimmy Butler can no longer play. So it's not, even though he's 35 years old, it's a lot of mileage. He may be slipping a bit. He's not the player he was in 2020 or 2022. But if you're Jimmy Butler, how does it benefit you to go out there and basically go half-assed? I don't like what does that do in terms of like if you want to be traded, the thing to do would be to go out there and be busting people's asses and saying, hey, look at me. I'm still one of the top 15 to 20 players in the league. I'm still that dude that can go out there and perform at a high level in the playoffs. Don't go out there and suck and, and think that that's going to drive your trade value. You're devaluing yourself. So it's not even logical for Jimmy Butler to go out there and basically go through the motions, have games where he'll only taking 9 shots, have games where he's standing in the corner. And again, if Jimmy Butler, if you think that Eric Spoelstra, who is universally regarded as the best coach in the NBA, if you think that Eric Spoelstra's play design is to have Jimmy Butler stand in the corner and just be a role player, you get the fuck out of here. No, Eric Spoelstra does not want Jimmy Butler to be a role player. Jimmy Butler is choosing to be a role player by acting like a petulant child on the floor. So this is a situation where there's both there is a number of blame to go around. I don't agree with Miami having to basically try to take his money in order to send a message. I think Jimmy Butler got suspended because he forced Miami to do something that they did not want to do. Miami, like I said at the top, Miami did not want to trade Jimmy Butler. They don't want to deal Jimmy Butler in season. They don't want to deal to him in deal. They don't want to trade him in season. They really wanted to wait for this offseason. They would have again a lot more flexibility to trade him. So this is their way. Them suspending him is their way of saying, basically, spitting in his face and saying, "Hey, okay, you're gonna make us do something that we don't want to do. We're gonna hit you in the pockets." I mean, Jimmy Butler hasn't played hard all season long. This just didn't start. And by the way, if you're Pat Riley called Jimmy Butler out in the offseason, basically told him to keep his mouth shut when Butler made a comment about, well, if I were playing, if I wasn't injured, the playoffs would have been different. Well, you were injured. That's part of the problem. And Jimmy Butler frankly hasn't played in 70 games since the 2016 season, over close to a decade. So he's missed a ton of games over the course of his career. Jimmy Butler is not going to play more than 60 games. That's probably his max, between 60 and 65 games a year. He's going to miss 20 to 25 games a year. So if I'm Miami, No, I'm not taking his money. What I would have done, first of all, I would have dealt with this in the offseason. I would have dealt with this even this wouldn't even been an issue going into the season. But let's say I had to, he was let's say that he was going to be on the team coming into the season. What I would do is pull him aside, be like, hey, you don't want to be here, and we probably want to go in another direction. We can discuss. You can go away you can say, hey, we can go. You're taking a leave. You could do the Andrew Wiggins. Take a leave of absence from the team. You're dealing with. You have a personal issue. You're taking a leave of absence from the team, and until we trade you, they didn't have to go in his pockets. Remember last year, I think last season, Andrew Wiggins, or the season before last, Andrew Wiggins. Now it turned out that Andrew Wiggins had a legitimate excuse. He was taking care of his father. His father passed away this summer, I believe. His father passed away this summer. So I'm not trying to I'm not making light of that by any stretch of imagination. But there was a way for Miami to handle this outside of basically taking $3.5 million away out of Jimmy Butler's pockets. And good luck trying to recoup that money that they're going to take. Sam Mitchell was on NBA TV this weekend and said a player knew of a player that it took that the team took like $1 million from or something like that to the extent. It took that player 4 years to get that money back. 4 years. So, good luck trying to get that money back. $3.5 million, and I don't care how much Jimmy Butler's making 40. I think Jimmy Butler's making like 40, $45 million a year. We'll get. Let me look at. I can look up his contract now. It doesn't. That's not the point. That's they take when someone takes that amount of money out of your pockets, you're gonna feel it. I'll look up Jimmy Butler's contract real quick. Uh, Jimmy Butler will be is getting paid this year $48 million. That's Jimmy Butler's base salary. He's getting $48 million this year. He has a player option next year for $52 million. But $48 million, $3 million. I don't care if he's getting $48 million. First of all, half of that goes to Uncle Sam, and then not along with the other lifestyle, along with the other expenses that he has in his life. $3.5 million is still $3.5 million. That's a lot of money. So that's how much he's going to be fined if that's how much he's going to lose, like $300,000 a game, something to that extent. So again, this situation could have been handled much better by both parties. Both of them almost are getting what they deserve from that standpoint. I think Jimmy Butler will be traded within the trade deadline is February 6th. I would be shocked if he's not traded. If he's not traded before that, I think Jimmy Butler will be traded within the next 3 weeks. I mean, you've heard, you'll hear the names like Phoenix, Houston, Golden State. I wouldn't. If I was Houston, I wouldn't touch him. Phoenix, it makes more sense for Phoenix and Golden State. They're trying; those are two aging teams that are trying to take last gasp at winning a championship before Curry and Durant are either not playing at a high level or just outright retired. So those two teams make sense. I've heard a little bit of Memphis, which would be interesting. They do definitely have the assets, and they have a lot of young talent. So they have the pieces and capital to make that type of trade. That would be interesting. That Jimmy Butler on Memphis would be must see TV. Him and John Morant in the same locker room. That would be absolutely must see TV. But again, Houston should not touch him. It's probably going to come down to one of those three teams: Phoenix, Golden State, or Memphis. As far as Tyreek Hill goes on this tirade last night after the game. Miami, of course, out the playoffs. First time in his career that he would have missed the playoffs. He finishes the season. Tyreek Hill with under first time in his career. He finishes under 1,000 yards. Um, yeah, only the third time in his career where he has under the thousand, where he finished the season under 1,000 yards. The first time he was a rookie with the Chiefs in 2019, where he missed. where he missed a few where he had missed a few games. So Tyreek Hill, last season he almost had 1,800 yards. We were talking about him possibly getting, he was voted by NFL One players to be the number one player in the NFL on the NFL 100 list. So it was a distinct, a very prolific fall from being all pro and considered the best receiver in the league to now not making the playoffs. And now you want to go on this, you want to go lose your mind in a press conference, start basically saying, it's been good, but I want to be out, want to be traded, which is fine. Like he can say, he can say what he wants. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's all time great. Tyreek, no question about it. But again, he's getting paid a lot of money. He's getting paid a lot of money, and you're gonna like if you trade for Tyreek Hill, you better be a Tyreek Hill away from winning a Super Bowl. If you trade for Tyreek Hill, you better be a Tyreek Hill away from winning the Super Bowl. That's all I say. He is scheduled to make next year. He is scheduled to make $28 million next year, and I'm telling you right now, he is not the type of guy player at this much at the player that is going to sit up here and take a pay cut. He's not that at that point in his career where he feels like he's going to take a pay cut to try to win a championship. He's already won a Super Bowl in his career. That's number one. Next year, he's scheduled to make so his base salary actually is not that bad. So his base salary in 2025 is at $10 million. Um, so it's actually not too like he has an out in his contract in 2026. He's an out in his contract. So the contract actually is not that bad, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's um like I said, his base salary will be at let me see how much he would count against the cap. All right, so next year he'll be 30 years old. Well, 2025, he'll be 31. All right, his cap hit would be at 20. You would sign his cap hit would be at $28 million. So basically $29 million. Again, that's a lot. Then it makes so for a team like the Commanders, you need to upgrade your offensive and defensive line. So yeah, it may look great carrying him next to Terry McLaurin, but remember, you're gonna have to pay Jane Daniels in like 2 years. So you have to be prepared for that, and you need to protect Jane Daniels, and you definitely need to upgrade your defense. So it doesn't make sense for the Commanders to get him. Again, there'll be a team that come out that there will be a team. Somebody will approach Miami, will inquire for sure. He's too talented, and he is still a top receiver. I don't think Tyreek Hill is on a decline. Even this year, he still had almost 1,000 yards despite Tua basically not playing with the concussions and various other injuries. So he can become a free agent in 2027. He has an out after 2026. Um, he's going to be looking for the thing about it, similar to Jimmy Butler. He's going to be looking for another contract. So the question is, 31-year-old receiver, are you willing? Again, the team that signs him, you better tell me that I'm putting him on my team. I'm a Super Bowl contender. It makes no sense. Like Dallas shouldn't touch him. Washington shouldn't touch him. A young rebuilding team absolutely shouldn't touch him. There are not that many teams. Now again, there's been talk about Kansas City, which would be I would find hilarious. And I guarantee if he goes back to Kansas City, he's not going back making $29 million a year. He's going to have to restructure his contract for sure. If he goes back to Kansas City, he might. I could definitely see that. Now that I'm thinking about it, more than likely his destination, he probably will end up back in Kansas City. He probably will end up back in Kansas City, which is just terrifying for the rest of the league. To be perfectly honest with you, they have a lot of young talent, even at the receiver position. But here's the thing: Tyreek Hill he does not have a lot of leverage because here's the bottom line about the NFL. If you haven't noticed in the last 5 years, since the 2020 draft, the NFL college football is producing top receiving prospects, at least 5 to 6 top receiving prospects a year are coming out the NFL draft. It's not hard to find a receiver to find a receiver coming out the NFL draft. It really it isn't. I mean, if you look at the top 15 receivers in football right now, I would say 10 to 12 of them are under the age of 25, 25 and under. I mean, you got Jefferson, you got Chase. I mean, you have the guy, this Brian Thomas from Jacksonville. There are a number of young. There's a receiver is a loaded position right now in the NFL, especially young receivers. You know, T. Higgins, C. Lamb. So it's not like you don't the receivers don't have demanding a trade and demanding where you're going to go. It doesn't have the type of leverage that I think he thinks he has. He's going to get traded. Um, so he's going to get traded, but you can find a receiver. Not hard to find a receiver in today's NFL. But I like I would say that I could definitely see a scenario where he ends up in Kansas City, back in Kansas City. It would not surprise me whatsoever. So big weekend for the NBA. You had Oklahoma City, which has been absolutely spectacular, continue their 15-game winning streak. They destroyed Boston yesterday, especially in the second half. Uh, they held Boston in the second half to 27 points, 8 for 40 from the field. SGA right now, and again, I'm a Joker fan, but SGA right now is the MVP. Like it's undeniable. He's on a team. The team is 30-4. He's playing. He's the best guard in the league right now. With Luka injured and going to be out for at least a month, right now, SGA is the best guard in the league right now. He's a legit top 4 player in the league right now. Uh, they've won 15 straight, best record in the conference without their second best player in Chet Holmgren. And again, they're in the stretch right now. Where they took out the Clippers, they took out Boston, and the Knicks in consecutive games. They have a showdown on Wednesday against the next game Wednesday against Cleveland, which will be a battle of two teams who are on pace to win 70 games. Cleveland right now, what they're doing right now is ridiculous as well. They've won 10 straight. So you had that going on. Then you had the Joker Wembanyama back-to-back showdown on Friday and Saturday. Here's the problem with the NBA, right? So the Celtic, first of all, Joker versus Wembanyama was not televised at all. You had to have league pass to see those two play. That's a problem. Those are you're talking about two of the top 10 players, and Wembanyama right now is a top 10 player. He might even be a top 8 player right now. There are only about 5 or 6 guys right now that I would take over him. It might really that it's that short. The list is absolutely that short. And of course, Joker. We all know Joker is undisputedly the best player in the world. That's not even a question. Um, that game is not broadcast on television. Um, you have the Celtics in Oklahoma City yesterday, which could be a potential finals preview. A lot of people have, and a lot of people's minds that will be the finals. It's on NBA TV competing against the NFL on a Saturday Sunday afternoon. That should have been a ABC Saturday night primetime game. So the NBA has a major problem with how they. First of all, there are too many games with the Lakers and too many nationally televised games, Golden State and the Lakers. The NBA does not, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's fear, they don't want to embrace the fact that the European players are at the top of the sport. And in order for the NBA, they don't, and they're not, they are having the damnest time of transitioning from the LeBron, Curry, Durant era into the Joker, Giannis, Luca, Wembanyama, that SGA era. It's their era now. LeBron and KD, LeBron, KD, and Curry are finished in terms of being contender as far as competing for championships. That's over with. They're still playing at relatively high levels. They're still all-star caliber players. If they play enough games, maybe they will get looks. Maybe they will get all NBA looks, but they're not. The NBA needs to move on. You have to have a succession plan in life, in any aspect, any corporation, church, school, whatever. You have to have a succession plan. And it seems to me like the NBA does not have a succession plan. So that outside of load management, that is the biggest problem that the NBA has right now. Now, as far as this Joker Wembanyama showdown, beautiful to watch. They split the two games. I'm telling you right now, that San Antonio team does not. That has not. They don't have a lot of talent. I mean, the fact that they are right now in the plan, they're like one game over 500, and right now they are in the plan. He's single handedly carrying that team. That team is not very talented. They don't. And they are absolutely on the clock to add talent to build a championship team around him. He similar to last year, and this is a scary thing for the rest of the league. He was actually starting to spend more time in the paint, especially in the game, the Friday night game against Denver. He, you saw him doing post ups in the paint. You saw him. A lot of most of his shots came in the paint. He took a share. He took a share. His share number of threes. We understand that. He took a share number of threes, and he ended up with 35 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 block shots, and was in foul trouble most of the game. And then he comes back the next night, 20, he has a 20-20 game with 4 block shots. And again, the second game was frustrating for me to watch because they did an awful job at getting him the basketball. I mean, hard. They could. There were times he went possessions without touching the ball, which is to me inexcusable. And what the next step I see for him, obviously with the post game and him, hitting some, maybe taking some mid range shots and taking less threes and more free throws. I've said that. But the next step for him is to dramatically improve his handle to a point to where he's not dependent on somebody getting him the ball. See, the thing that makes Joker special, besides the fact that he is one of the greatest passers like the game has ever seen, he can handle the ball. He can actually be like a point. He's like a point center. We've seen Joker actually initiate the offense, where he can start the offense by himself. And I think Victor, though not the passer, he is a decent playmaker. I think he can get his handle to that point to where he can initiate the offense to where, again, I don't have to depend on the point guard or on these perimeter players to give me the basketball, especially in clutch situations. So because they just don't know how to get him the basketball. They really is really problematic for that team. They just don't. They don't. But again, it was a fascinating 2 games to watch those two go at it. You see, Joker has nothing but respect and admiration for him. Joker, see, great, game recognizes game. He knows Wembanyama is coming. He knows he's coming. He's going to try to stave him off for the next couple of years. But Wembanyama is going to be the best player in the league in, I would say, maybe 2 years. 3 at the max. Maybe I would lean towards 2. He's going to be the best player in the league without question. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. As always, you can find this podcast anywhere where podcasts are available. And stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your week. So long.